how to quit your W-2 and what comes next. So I've been retired for about 2 years. I think, Mike, you're about 2 years from being able to retire. Not sure if you're going to do it that soon. How are you, since I've already done it, I've covered it on several videos. I want to tell people your story. How are you leaving your W-2?
As quickly as possible, Dion. As quickly as possible. You know, I took a promotion recently, promoted to the rank of sergeant. I went straight to night shift, 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. I supervised 10 people. And it's funny because in the state of Washington, pursuits have been illegal for like the last 3 years. Just the bad guy runs from you, you pull over on the side of the road and you wave at them as you watch their taillights disappear in the distance. Well, finally, after the citizens of the fine state of Washington got tired of that, they've decided to bring pursuits back in some capacity. We're not exactly sure what capacity, but some capacity. And I'm sitting here as a new sergeant and somebody who remembers what it was like back when we did have pursuits. I've been in multiple chases. They're fun. They're a good time. But I'm sure you remember for your first few, there is a bit of a learning curve. You have to get comfortable with them. The very first time you do it, you bust out the radio and you're just like, I'm en route. Oh my God, they're crashing. You freak out, you panic. And there's a bit of a learning curve. You lose your mind in a pursuit. Well, unless you have more than 3 years of experience, you never saw what a pursuit was. And so all of the people that I now supervise all have less than 3 years. So what's going to happen is they're going to bless those again. And I'm going to have 10 very excited individuals out there ready to just tear it up. And I'm afraid they might tear it up. So along with the legal liabilities that I potentially face, the physical safety liabilities that I face being shot at occasionally, maybe a little bit less now in a supervisory role, and the health benefits or lack of health benefits that come with just working from 7 p to 5 a.m., which if you know anything about night shift, it's actually so bad for your body, it's considered a carcinogen. I'm trying to retire as quickly as possible. So you might ask yourself, well, how, Mike? How are you going to do it? Well, I've obviously set myself up with a real estate investing portfolio. I just closed on a fourplex a few weeks ago. I've got 25 rental units. I've got a duplex that I'm supposed to close on Monday. That'll put me at 27. I put this entire portfolio together to build passive income so that I can replace my active income so that I can exit the workforce. But on the day that I get to pull the microphone out and sign out of service for my last shift, how am I going to do it? Well, if I said it here, I might get myself in trouble. But on that day, I'll make sure I'm live streaming from my patrol car. Because what are they going to do? Fire me?
Yeah, you actually had some issues with TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
And, apparently, when you're in law enforcement, they frown on that, which is funny because those tend to do the best as far as TikTok goes,
right?
Or the military. So, wanting to leave your W-2, you're doing it with real estate. Is there, when we talk to brand new investors, they usually talk about a unit count or some threshold like that. What's the determining thing that's going to make it so that you can hang up your spurs and walk away from the W-2 and not worry about it?
So I think obviously any good investor should stress test their portfolio. I've known people who thought that they had the systems in place to retire and be financially free. And then when they did, a few minor hiccups, just, an unplanned repair, a couple of people didn't pay rent they didn't expect, and they were very stressed their first couple of years of being retired, extremely stressed. I was hearing about it via phone call over and over and over again. So I don't want that to be me. I subscribe to the Dion Talk Financial Freedom Method, which is I know that you were about $15,000, $16,000 in straight profit to be able to cover the lifestyle you wanted. Right now, it's me and my son. I understand that I'm going to have to pay for the medical care. I will no longer be insured, so that's expensive. And then I want to be able to cover all of my basic living needs. But then I also want to have enough left over that I don't have to live super frugal. If I did all this work to become financially free, I don't want to be lean fire. I'm not that desperate to get away from my job that the second I have base expenses covered, I'm out. I want to be fat fire, lumberjack landlord fire, since he's not here to defend himself. We'll just call it that. Just kidding, Matt. If you're watching in the comments, I love you, buddy. You're in great shape. Uh, but I want to have, and then on top of the extra, I also want to be able to have enough to continue to grow a real estate portfolio. So I think for me, the number that I'm looking at is around $15,000 to $16,000 a month in straight profit, and I need that coming in for about 6 months before I'm comfortable bouncing out of my W-2.
So there's a couple of metrics there that I like. And the reason I asked the question the way that I did is a lot of people say, I want 10 units, I want 25 units, and that doesn't tell us anything. It doesn't how much you have invested, what your cash flow is, what your expenses are. And there's one question that if somebody doesn't answer this question, they can't retire. And that question is, it's not how much cash flow do you need? Where do you want to live? The question is, what lifestyle do you want to live? There are people who live super frugally in a very high cost of living area. You house hack and you eliminate that largest expense. Yes, there's a bit of travel to get to the more affordable places to eat and to shop, but it isn't how much money that you have, right? That's the first problem we have when we talk to people about retiring. They say, I need $1 million or $5 million, or I've heard $75,000 would be enough for somebody to retire. And that actually wasn't too long ago. So
60 years ago?
No, that was like 2 years ago. And I need to reach out to that person and ask them how they're doing because
Yeah.
It's a monthly amount of money that comes in that you don't have to sell your life for 1 hour at a time. And when you first start researching this, we find that freedom number. And so when you answer the question of what lifestyle do you want, for me, it's about $4,000 a month, right? Healthcare is covered. Housing is free because I house hack. I want to go to countries like Colombia, Thailand, Portugal, where the dollar was super strong. So the $4,000 is plenty. So then the new investor goes, well, $4,000 is your freedom number. As soon as your passive cash flow, is above 4,000, you can retire. And then you'd be just like your friends, where a couple of people don't pay rent, you go through an eviction, you have an unexpected expense, maybe a health concern. And then the worst case scenario is you have to go back to work, right? Our worst case scenario is most people's day-to-day expectation that they have to, if they don't work, they don't have their house, they don't have their car, they don't have their toys, they don't have their food next month for most people, right? The majority of people. So there's a multiplier. In order to leave your W-2 with confidence that you're not going to have to be super frugal, because that wasn't my point, I actually have what are called reverse budgets now. So I'm hoping that your cash flow gets you to the point where, because for 5 to 10 years, we basically learn these skill sets of earning what we can, investing, spending as little as we can so that the amount we can invest is bigger. So we learn the idea that we're always broke. No matter how much money's coming in, we put money into the next investment. Once you reach financial freedom, yes, some money piles up and you continue to invest, but we have to break our brains and start allocating funds towards the lifestyle that we want. And for me, that's eating out all the time. I don't want to cook. I raised 3 picky kids. I took an oath to never cook again.
Mhm.
Right? I want to be able to scuba dive anywhere and not worry about the cost of the dive or the equipment. Or if I see some new gadget toy for scuba that I've never seen before in my life, but it costs $1,200 and I think I can't live without that, even though I've never had one, I'm going to buy it, right? I want that level of money coming in. And when we walk away from our W-2, we start with the money, right? We start with how much money do we need? What lifestyle do I want to live? What's my freedom number? What multiple of that do I want? And there's a sliding scale. I think that the lower amount of money that you need, the bigger your multiplier should be. If you only need $1,000 a month to survive, you can be happy. You want to geo arbitrage, move to Thailand where healthcare is $60 a month for a couple and $1,000 a month is enough to live on. Not comfortably, but you can live on it. 2,000 would be comfortable. But if it's 1,000, I would want passive cash flow of at least 5, 6, or 7 times that coming in to handle the big expenses when they come. Since mine was around 4,000, I figured a multiplier of 4 was good. So that 16 is when it broke. And I thought, okay, I can walk away from my job. And just like you pointed out, it had to hit that for a while. So I had that for about 4 years and then walked away from my job. Now, the difference between me and you is I really liked my job, like you like your job, but mine didn't have the health concerns of getting lead poisoning in a rapid fashion, right? Mine was more stress related. I wanted time freedom, right? So I worked for 4 more years. So I did that litmus test of will this stay sustainably at this level long enough so that I'm confident when I retire, it's still going to be there, even if things change. Because we also hear the crash bros out there talking about, and this was in a comment I read earlier, referring to the collective us, right? The REI Avengers, the Beth Traversos, the Coach Carsons of the world. We think real estate's never going to go down in price, right? So that was the comment. Well, we hope it does, just like everyone else, right? We want to buy things on sale, just like anybody else. What hasn't happened since 1940 when we started tracking the data is that rents have never gone down. But we invest with that multiplier before we walk away from our W-2, expecting rents to go down. So that if they ever do, if there's the unanticipated black swan that we can't even imagine happens and rents go down, we still don't have everybody else's normal, our worst case scenario of having to go back to work. But that's math. When you exit your W-2, right now, when you meet people, I mean, you might not spring out with, oh, I'm a first responder, right? You probably want to sugarcoat it because of the perception of law enforcement right now. But most people, when they say, what do you do? Well, I'm the president of a company. I work in IT sales. I work in whatever their thing is, they're identified as their job. To leave your W-2, how much of your identity is tied up in what you're doing for work? So let's start that with you. You went through all the training. You did all the extra work to become a SWAT officer. You worked to get this promotion. You have these years of experience and this skill set that you can use every day. That no matter what everybody says, can make several people's lives better. And you're going to walk away from it. How do you wrap your head around that?
That is actually a very good question and kind of tough to swallow, because when you are a police officer, I can carry, I got to be careful with the language here because of YouTube, but I can carry a pew anywhere, licensed to carry anywhere, school. And I mean, other than a military base or a federal facility, there's just a certain level of protection that you feel, because if you see something, and especially in a place like Seattle, where if you go visit touristy areas, you're very likely to observe an assault. If you walk into a Target before they closed the Targets because of all of the theft, you're very likely to observe a theft. There's a certain benefit to being able to see something and have the authority to be able to step in and intervene if necessary. And not that a random citizen can't step in and do the right thing, you just don't have the same authority to do something. And what part of me is tied to what I do? I mean, like you said, all of us, we're tied to what we do. We all have different titles that we accumulate through life. We're both fathers, police officers, real estate investors, influencers, people who make YouTube videos who would rather die than be called an influencer. So we have this cavalcade of different titles that we've amassed over our lives. And one of the ones that I am the most proud of is all of the time that I spent to become a police officer and then get on the SWAT team and then get promoted. It's been a lot of work, a lot of time. By the time I'm out, it'll have been over a decade of my life. And to give that up is definitely not easy, because you work so hard for something. But at the same time, I think that the point you always make where you have to retire to something, I'm not giving that title up and then just becoming Mike, the former retired police officer who sits at home on the couch. I'm still Mike, the YouTuber, Mike, the real estate investor, Mike, the guy who goes and speaks at real estate conventions and conferences and helps teach a whole bunch of other people how to get started investing in real estate. And the overwhelming gratification that I get from seeing person after person after person in my DMs and following my channel buy their first rental property, get their next one. And people like Senya, who now are on 6 in Gary. My friend Kelvin, who is a police officer with me, who's on 4 in Gary. My roommate Darius, who's on 3, convinced his girlfriend to buy one, and he's about to buy his 4th. I see person after person after person buy rental properties, and it makes it much more palatable and easier to swallow the pill of giving up that large part of my identity over the last 10 years, which was Mike the cop.
Good point. Yeah, I don't think people can identify with that until they walk through the door, until you do it. I think so. So many people see themselves from the position of their job that they forget what the world is actually like until you walk away from it. Especially when you think you have coworkers that you spend a lot of time with on certain shifts, certain areas you interact with.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's always people that there's your beat buddy, who you hang out with the most and you go run stops with or handle crimes with.
And so in most employment most companies, people have like their office group or their warehouse group,
Work
and
wife.
everybody thinks work wife. Everybody thinks they're friends. You are work friends. That ends the second the job ends. You actually become worse than a stranger. A stranger will ask them questions about their job and then have an opinion. You have an opinion of their job that made you walk away from it. That means you have a negative opinion of everything they're working hard to do, no matter what job you're in. I'm looking at the questions here. Afro Capitalist, howdy, good to see you again. Howdy, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this random Friday that Matt, the lumberjack landlord, put together and then didn't make it to. Would paying off some of your would paying off and if it got your cash flow faster? I think you're asking the question, if you have rentals and you pay off debt, would that increase your cash flow? It would increase your cash flow on that rental, but it would slow down the increase to your cash flow. Right? When you pay off debt on a property, you reduce the amount of multiples of appreciation you're getting. You're only getting depreciation on what you've invested. Versus when you take the money that you would use to pay off that debt and acquire another rental, you start a new depreciation schedule. More income without paying taxes. You start appreciation on multiples of what you're paying down because you're also using leverage to acquire the new property. So when we're in growth mode and you're trying to increase cash flow, no, paying down debt doesn't usually make sense. When paying debt makes sense is when there's two forms, there's three forms of debt: good debt, bad debt, worse debt. Worse debt is if you have an adjustable rate loan or something with a loan reevaluation period or high interest, maybe then pay it off. Mortgage rates under 10%, that's not high interest, not worth focusing on paying off because of the benefits of acquiring more assets that make a better return on your money. It's the stabilization phase where paying off some debts might make sense. This doesn't increase your cash flow because taking the money that you used to pay off the debt and acquiring another rental would increase your cash flow more than paying off the debt. When you pay off debt, you increase your equity position. You decrease your risk. Right? It slows down the growth of cash flow, but it's more stable. The example I would use is for 10 years, I grew a real estate portfolio, and everything I did was focused on acquiring the next rental. At the 10-year mark, I don't actually want more rentals. I will acquire them because they keep mathematically making the most sense, but it could make sense for some people to pay off the debt. If I had higher interest rates, I'd probably pay it off, but all my interest rates are below 4%, all but one. And so they're hovering at the inflation rate. Just free money to me to have that sitting in there. We're talking now about the exit strategy of leaving your W-2. When we get towards the end of this video, we're going to talk about the exit strategy of how you leave your investing portfolio. Because not too many people think of that's actually what the title of the video is. What comes next? What comes after that? What happens when I'm too old to answer a text about a leaky faucet and then send a text to a handyman to have him go and then send a Venmo payment? When I'm too old to do that.
Well, realistically, there'll be artificial intelligence versions of ourselves that we program with our younger brains that handle all of that with the same, disposition we would have.
There is a great Black Mirror episode on just that subject. It does
Oh,
not.
really?
Yeah, because it's literally you cloned
Right.
in AI, and you have to basically torture yourself until you perform with what you're to better your life, because that person is you, and you would want to be free.
Nice.
Good episode. You don't watch those kind of things, though. So, Rob makes a point here. Well, rents have gone down, which is not actually true, but it took in the form of incentives and discounts until market recovered. What actually happened, Rob, is in 2008 when we had the biggest market crash, right? Class A rentals, people who lost their jobs making $150,000, $200,000 a year, had a hard time replacing their income, so they would downsize to Class B or C rentals. There wasn't a lot of demand for Class A rentals, so Class A rents went down. That's not where we invest or where we suggest to invest. I invest in Class C areas by preference. Mike invests in Class C, D areas and then brings the property up to C level. And I think Matt, the lumberjack landlord, is C and B, and he wants it higher end rentals than me. For one thing, when somebody making $150,000 a year loses their job, You don't just walk out, especially when it's your entire industry. If medical laid off, which they have a shortage, if truck driving laid off, which they have a shortage, so it's not likely to happen. But if IT lays off because of the IT industry taking a hit, you don't just walk out the door and find another $150,000 a year job. But when you're making $50,000 or $60,000 a year renting a $1,500 Class C rental or $1,200 Class C rental, and you lose your job, unemployment pays your rent. The next $20 an hour job is the next company around the corner, right? So Class C and B saw a spike in rents in 2009 and 10. Not enough to make it look like rents went up. So you have to see a chart that shows the A, B, and C markets. It looks like rents go down in 9 and 10 because A took such a dip. But B and C went up because when we had millions of foreclosures, we had extra millions of tenants. So since 1940, when we started tracking the data, you can Google it or I'll pull up the picture if you like. Rents have never actually, over a 5-year period, ever gone down and stayed down. But we're investing like we planned that it's going to. That's the whole point. It's just like when the crash bros say, well, if you buy a property, you're unprofessional term, you're screwed because property prices can go down next year. We're not buying based on prices. We don't care if there's a crash. We don't care if prices go up. I mean, yeah, having equity to tap can accelerate your strategy, but it's not actually even a part of mine. It's been 12 years of investing now. I've never taken out a home equity line of credit. I've never sold for a 1031. I've never done a cash out refinance. I've never done anything that any of that equity would mean anything to me, other than every now and then I'll make a video on net worth, which is mind-boggling on how fast that grows in the last couple of years. Still not touching it. I go with the Emperor's New Groove here. No touchy. Make sure I'm not missing any questions here. Mike, you need to find a hider a second home in Gary. The city calls to him.
But then I have enough vacant units. You can just stay in any of those. So the project stabilization is going very well, by the way. So I just finished my taxes. And every year I have to dedicate 2 full days of doing taxes because not that I'm super unorganized, I just leave it all for the end of the year, like divvying up all the receipts to the individual properties. I had the unfortunate pleasure of tracking all of the Zelle payments. I incorrectly assumed that when I went to my bank, I would be able to click on Zelle transactions and like print a spreadsheet or, kind of like a statement history for your bank. Oh no, that's not how it works. Unfortunately, it pops up this little mini window and I had to go transaction by transaction to write the address for the property and the amount. So I had to make my own spreadsheet. Now that I know that, I will do it as I go through this next year instead of leaving it all for the end of the year. It was a giant mess, but finished up my taxes and I spent, as I anticipated last year when we made a video on this topic, $100,000 in remodeling. $51,000 to just one contractor. It was actually probably slightly over 100,000. But yeah, it was a lot. And all of that was to get properties, get them fixed up, get them fixed up, get them fixed up. Well, the nice thing is I've got a duplex that just got registered with the city of Gary, 2 units. Each one's going to be, or one of them is going to be 1,200. One of them is going to be 1,000. So there's $2,200 in rent. Just got registered. We just notified Section 8. Hopefully we start getting some applicants coming in for that one. I have a single family house that we're just waiting on the Section 8 inspection, which unfortunately they're slow. Once it gets inspected, it will pass. This contractor's done plenty of my property. It'll pass. Tenant will move in there. They're approved for $1,218 a month on that one. I have another one where they just moved into it. And so the very first month went where the property manager takes their portion. So now I've got multiple properties that are coming online and my monthly income is going up, up, up. Instead of $6K, within 2 or 3 months, it should be a lot closer to 10. And with another couple months, I'll probably be closer to like 13, 14, which would be very nice. Very nice. One of the things that I have been trying to come up with a good analogy for, to get back to the topic that was asked just a second ago by Afro Capitalist when he said, is it better to pay off properties? If you use debt and you buy more properties, every property you get is like increasing the size of your hammer. You have this hammer that's cash flow. And when you get your first property, you've got one payment on it, one nail. You've got one hammer. You got one hammer to hit that one nail. Well, as you buy more and more and more properties, you create a whole bunch more nails, but your hammer gets bigger, better, and more efficient. And so I understand the desire to take this hammer and say, I ain't buying any more nails. Just pound the ones that I got in here down and walk around with a big freaking FU Mjolnir Thor hammer. But if you just keep taking more mortgages on, keep spreading out your equity between different properties, that hammer you get gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then when you make it to retirement, you can use that hammer to swing at anything and just wipe it out easily. Maybe the nails you decide to take on after retirement are a big car, big vacations, big trips, whatever it is. You've got this big FU hammer that can just wipe stuff out. And so that's why I've chosen not to pay properties off and instead continue to buy more, because when I get to retirement, I want to be like Dion, Matt, and Michael Zuber and just be walking around with a freaking baseball bat, boom, knocking these things down, because it just makes it that much easier. But yes, my hammer, no pun intended, it's getting bigger every day.
Next live, I'm wearing my Hammer shirt. I have a Captain Hammer shirt, and it's very sad that you don't even know who Captain Hammer is.
I know who Captain Planet is.
Captain Hammer is from 2006. So it's not like it's from the 80s.
Okay.
Which is a real time period. I know it's history to you.
Before I was born.
Right. That's history. Jada says, so that house that's been on the market for over 300 days, I spoke with the agent, and she says that the reason buyers have backed out is because the ADU in the back is old and needs work, but nothing major. So make an offer that makes sense to you. Once under contract, have an inspection done. Look at the amount of work that needs to be done. Double what you expect that to cost, because you have the timeline of holding it as well. Ask for that in either concessions that they do the fix or in a price adjustment to where the numbers do make sense to you, and see what it looks like. Because two things are happening there. The buyers are backing out because they saw the amount of work that needs done and the seller didn't budge. So it comes down to negotiating skills there on getting that deal to a number that does make sense. Andrew, yes, you do know Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog, which is where Captain Hammer is from. Thank you. Letting me know I'm not the only nerd here. Dawn and Bev Perkins, howdy. Finally under contract on property number 4, rental number 3. Hopefully close in 10 more days. You have to let us know how it goes. Congratulations. That's awesome. Once you get to 4, this is when you start to think, is that what I want? Will these 4 just be at something that I add to my retirement, like Michael Zuber originally thought his plan was? Or is 4 the gateway drug to 10? Or 25 in Mike's case?
Right. Or 27 as of on Monday.
Nice.
27.
I have 18, and I think I want 14.
You know, seller finance them to me? What's going on?
Target goal. Well, it's an option. We stabilize this year, figure out where I'm at, and I might. Yeah. We'll see.
What is so hard about those 4 units that you're saying to yourself, the guy who's online constantly talking about less than an hour a month, less than 2 hours a month, but you know what? Those last 4 units, they're giving me 2 hours and 10 minutes. I can't do it. I need an hour and 45 minutes. I'm getting rid of them.
Yeah, that's 2 hours a month. Interrupt nap time. I don't like the properties that are inside city limits.
Okay. Why?
They have city inspectors that are uneducated, don't know what they're doing, probably easy to deal with. I don't like the permit process for inside city limits versus the county that basically just says, don't burn it down. Let us know when you're done. Versus the city is like, that's an 18-inch mark in drywall. You need a permit and permission for you to fix that yourself. Like, it isn't even hiring a contractor. Yeah. That's kind of the thing there.
Yeah,
So I probably will never sell them, but that's the little thing is, I think I say it because a lot of people are like, I want more. I want more. Once you have more, you want more. No, once you have more, there is enough. What is enough? That's the other question. To retire, to be able to walk away and go, what is enough? When the company that I was at, I had $2 million golden handcuffs. Right? If there was ever a sale of the company, I would walk away with about $2 million. And there are some people who say they couldn't do that because they would never have enough. $2 million would always be enough to keep them around. For me, enough was time freedom. if I don't ever have to have an alarm clock, I don't ever have to care what day of the week it is. Like today, I keep thinking it's Tuesday because I'm talking to the camera, right? That's when my live streams are. It could have been 10 million. I'd still would have walked away with exactly the cash flow that I had. Doesn't take more properties. And some ways of looking at this, offloading some, that's why the seller financing might not be the route for those, is because it would be lump sum for debt destruction. I think Cody and Christian are doing some things like that where they sell something, they take a lump sum and they take care of another.
Cody sent me a message the other day when I put on my Instagram page that I closed on a fourplex. He was like, "Oh, nice job." And I was like, "I know, dude, only 150 units left before I catch up to you, or 200 units, whatever it is." He was like, "Well, it's going to get easier because I'm actually selling, I think it's selling a 12plex. So he can use it to pay down debt on other stuff." So again, like back to the hammer, you create this giant hammer, but maybe you shave off a little portion of it and just wipe out a whole bunch of nails, because even just holding the hammer long enough, equity increase makes it bigger. So, they're at the point where they're like, do we actually need 250 units? Maybe not. Maybe we can get by with 225 and just sell a few,
That's the whole point. I almost brought up that's what they do is you grow a bigger portfolio than you need so that as appreciation happens, you can then take some of the equity, destroy some of the debt, make more money by making your portfolio smaller. And Zuber talks about that too. I think he references it every time he pulls up pruning your network, right? Getting rid of the negative people, blocking the crash bros, making sure your circle of friends is people you want to be like, and then looking at your real estate portfolio and thinking, okay, that one. So Matt had, I think it was a triplex that had a lot of turnover. And so he wanted to get rid of it. I don't have that issue. I don't have a property that's a headache other than the cities. They're the headache, but the property and the tenants aren't. So Dan, howdy. What do you think your taxes will look like after all your properties is paid off? At some point, I would think you would stop buying properties. Right. So the ABCs of real estate is always be closing. So you're always starting a new depreciation schedule. That's true. Here's what it looks like, Dan. 27 and a half years of depreciation, because I don't do cost segregation studies. I have 100% of my depreciation to spread out over all of those years. Levered appreciation. I have mortgages on the majority of my properties. So I'm carrying forward losses every year, even though I have hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in profit. There's a video on my channel called The Truth About Cash Flow. I think that's the one. It's a whiteboard where I talk about actually what I'm making, still paying nothing in taxes. But now let's go forward 27 and a half years. Depreciation is done. You own the properties. What do you do now? It's this simple. And we use that word. You are making so much freaking money. You pay some taxes. Like how is that a bad thing? You've got 27 and a half years of rent increases. 27 and a half years of the cost of everything except your mortgage going up, right? Property taxes and insurance will go up, but that's not as much as interest and payments. You're even in my case, you're 2.5 years, because I can almost math, away from your mortgage being paid off if you've never made an extra payment. Your tenants have paid it off all the time. So you almost have paid off mortgages. You have almost 30 years of rents going up. Yeah, I'm totally fine writing $1 million a year check to the government. Wouldn't care, because you'd be making 3 million, 4 million to be doing that. So yes, if you add properties, you start a new depreciation schedule. That to me is why it makes more sense to add a property than to pay off a mortgage. I paid one off. It was my smallest mortgage, highest interest rate. So I tried to use the debt avalanche and debt snowball combination there. That choice has cost me over $1 million. In 6 years. I don't regret paying it off, having a paid off property. It's a good stabilization move. It slowed down my cash flow growth. It slowed down my extra depreciation to do. It stopped my multiples in appreciation. And while I don't regret it, I can logically look at it and go, 7th biggest mistake I ever made.
I got a question for you real quick, Dion.
Okay.
Back on the topic of me that I was doing my taxes. And as I'm sitting there, someone, and I know you can relate, who grew up unbelievably poor. I remember when I was a kid and we would put $5 in the tank for gas. because that was all we had. And thank God it was only 99 cents a gallon, because that meant we would be able to drive around for a couple of days. Now that's 1 gallon. And I would look at the cost of things in the store. I grew up on food stamps. I grew up on Section 8 housing. I remember the Women, Infants, and Children programs called WIC, free lunches. And I would look at what things cost, and I was baffled. And I remember when I did my first budget, I was about 9 years old, and I had to ask my mom, how much does rent cost? Oh, like $400 a month. God, I wish. How much does groceries cost? Like $100 a month. Nobody had cell phones, so you didn't have to ask about that back then. But I remember doing my first budget and realizing that, 1999 Mike could have lived as an adult if I was just making $10 an hour for 40 hours a week for 4 weeks in a month, $1,600 a month, and I could have lived like a king in my head, covered all my expenses, no problems. And now I do that $1,600 a month, by the way, what does that end up yearly? I don't even know. 20, 15, 18,000, something like that, maybe 20,000, nothing, pennies. I do my taxes and I look at the money that flows through my accounts. And it's funny when you hear people talk about money being like water. It is like water. It just flows. Cash flow flows right on through. Money comes to me, goes right back out. It's just this constant stream of, I take things in, I then deploy it towards different properties. And I look at these numbers, huge numbers. This one property, $16,000 foundation repair. This one property, $50,000 in remodeling. This one property, cash out refinance, $100,000 in my pocket. And I remember my reverence and respect and the sanctity with which I viewed a freaking dollar bill. And now, I'm just sitting here with like $600 just in a cup that's been here for months on my desk, because it's just a piece of paper now. And so my question for you is like, how did you, and I know some of what you've had in savings accounts and what you spent in cash on your properties, how did you go from being that guy who cared about it all to now it's just numbers on a screen that you look at and you move it around to put it into real estate?
It's that LeBron quote. I think that he's the one. I know he was a basketball player. Are you familiar with it?
No. I'm hoping
When you
you're
don't
wrong.
have enough, when you don't have enough, money is the only thing. You're thinking, how much can I fuel the tank? I'll get an appetizer so my kids can get a meal here. I'll have a bowl of soup at the restaurant so I can take the kids out. I'm gonna go to the movies and we're gonna sneak candy in because ain't nobody can afford that stuff, right? But whatever you're thinking, every decision you make every day is about money because it's the only thing. But once you have enough, it's just a thing. That's the shift. It goes from the only thing to just a thing. And some people are so broke, all they have is cash, right? That, like, you don't want to be that person. You have the cash laying around, but you have that cash laying around and it doesn't matter because you know that the cash flow that's going to hit your account before you have any other expenses is going to be way more than what you're going to spend this month. It's just a thing. And I think I used to get frustrated when people say, as soon as you could stop thinking about money like money and just do the math, it becomes a lot easier to make more. And I would think, oh, what a stuck up way to look at me. I'm like trying to figure, we're cutting through the couch to roll coins to get enough money to go to the gas station to buy a snack for the kids, right? Like you just have to think of it like math. That sounds easy, but everybody lives somewhere, right? You could choose to be homeless. You could choose to rent. You could choose to buy, but you can choose to buy a house hack. You could choose to buy a rental. You could choose to buy like I did, then move into an apartment and rent out your house. You have to start thinking, like all those people that irritated me, of the math and not the money. Make it a thing. And then it becomes just a thing. It's still mind-boggling, right? Because I did a video, I think yesterday, because that's how the days of work, on how inflation doubled my net worth in the last 4 years. I had just barely hit $1 million in net worth in early 2020, and in 2024, because of inflation took it up to over 2 million. And then my two moves of buying a duplex and this fourplex have added another million. So net worth has broken the $3 million point, but doubling your net worth just because you own assets when inflation hits. Zuber shirt. Just like in real life, I used inflation to get rich. Ask me how. That's how. And it's just a thing. And I wouldn't know that if I wasn't sitting there, well, I'm going to make a video and see what's happened with inflation, my net worth in the last couple of years. Christopher, howdy. Deanna, Mike, I'm so close to purchasing my first rental. Mike, thanks to you. Thanks for what you've provided, Deanna. I have been wanting to reach out, but don't know the best way. I have tried Instagram. That's not the best. Instagram is the stupidest. Look, I'm going to open Instagram. If I can even find it. Okay, so I open Instagram. And then I go up here. There's there's it doesn't even load because there's like 5 trillion freaking messages from everybody, and none of them so yeah, no, Instagram's not the right way because unlike Mike, I am you're over 30 now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So
I keep trying, guys. I keep trying.
Okay. Email, I will put it here in the chat. That's the best way to reach me. Because I get a ton of Facebook messages. I get and I want to say probably over 1,000 Instagram messages a week. That's why I don't ever see them. Right. Yeah, that's probably the best way.
Dion is a bad example for everybody watching this. Please make an Instagram page. And the reason I tell you that is because everybody nowadays, when they want to verify who you are, when they want to do business with you, when they want to look you up, they go to Instagram. They don't go to Facebook. They don't go on email. They don't call your phone. I have had producers of TV shows reach out to me. Matt actually and I both got reached out to by the same flipping TV show. I've had famous professional athletes, World Cup soccer players, people who've decided to invest in maybe like Instagram is where people go to verify you and your story. If you don't have one, you're doing yourself a disservice. Dion has his Dion ways. He's set in them. He's just going to die on this hill. If that's the hill he wants to die on, fine. But he's wrong. And I'm sure in that long list of 400 you up DMs from attractive young ladies and a bunch of people asking for real estate, there's probably a few people in there who would have loved to either put him on a TV show or a podcast that he probably missed out on because nobody reaches out to you on Facebook. They reach out to you on Instagram. So, it's probably Grant Cardone, Ken McElroy, me, Kevin, and Graham Stephan just in his DMs languishing, wondering why the heck this dude thinks he's too good to respond.
There's a question for you here to deconstruct your segue there.
Sure.
Afro-Capitalist asks you, do you encourage full rehabs in Gary as a first rental since we have the contacts but no experience in full rehabs? What would you suggest?
No, I would not. I made a video, and I thought I might have told you this recently, Afro-Capitalist, because you've been watching a lot of my stuff. I made a video a few weeks ago called Turnkey Rental Properties Are Dead. And the synopsis of the video is if you try to buy turnkey right now, it's not going to cash flow well enough, with the very rare exception of maybe you found like a fourplex, maybe. The best thing that I recommend people to do right now is to do turnkey light. I'm calling it low calorie, zero sugar diet turnkeys. You want a turnkey rental property that's just not quite there. A little bit of remodeling, maybe like just new carpet, new floors, or maybe like just the windows, or just like some painting and landscape. A few $1,000s worth of remodels. Maybe in the Gary area, I would be looking at no more than like 8 to 10 grand worth of remodeling to be done. 8 to 10 grand goes a really long way. That should be floors and painting. But you buy that thing that's not quite turnkey, but real close. A month worth of work and 10 grand, but you're buying it 30, 40% under market. That is the only way that you can really get started, in my opinion, right now, unless you want to do full gut rehab, which I don't recommend. You don't, even though you guys have me as a resource, and I will recommend you good contractors, good property managers, good agents. You don't have the relationships built. You don't have the experience built. You don't have the muscle built yet to take the pain of, it's twice as much as you thought and it's going to take twice as long. Until you've done some of these projects and you're used to that coming. The first time you hear twice as much, twice as long, you're going to throw up. Your wife's going to be mad. You're going to be mad. I wouldn't do a full gut rehab. I know it's cool to watch me do those projects, but I would definitely shy away from it unless you have so much money that you literally don't care. Got a guy who follows me who's a multi-millionaire in Bitcoin. And he's like, what if I just gave you 800 grand? Like, I would buy the whole city. Like, no problem. If that's you, all right, fine. You can afford to lose some money. Most of us can't. And real quick, one more thought unrelated to this. For those of you out there who have been watching all of the news about squatters going into properties and squatters being able to seize the property and manipulate loopholes in the law, and the cops get called, and then they end up arresting the little lady who was just trying to get back into her house after her mom passed away. They arrest her instead of the squatters. If you're sick and tired of that problem and you want some advice from a cop about how best to defeat squatters, immediately after this live stream, I'm going to be starting a live stream on my channel, and I'm going to give you guys some unique tips, tricks, and insights that I've never heard anybody talk about on YouTube ever, and I think you guys are going to like it. So please, after this, follow me on my live stream, because I guarantee you've never heard this before.
No, that works for me, because as Frank points out here, before he sent his super chat, because first he sends a super chat to tell everybody they should be wearing their shirt. Should be our new channel shirt. Old Guy REI here on YouTube. You should check him out. Frank flew to my house from California. Spent almost a week here, and pointed out that I shouldn't be doing a live stream because right now I'm supposed to be caulking. It is ready. It is ready for the caulk. And I'm going to run you through this really quick. Frank, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm doing this back edge, I'm doing the corners, and I'm doing the bottoms. Everywhere that has a flexible point. Let me know if I'm missing something else that I'm supposed to do there.
What are you going to do from the wall to the tile edge?
This is getting re-drywall fixed at the edge. And this is a straight line edge on the edge of that, on the outside.
Yeah, you'll still, and I'm sure Frank will agree with me, you'll still want to put a bead of caulk on that.
Yeah, once that drywall's done. But I mean, just today to get this done, because I want to be able to put the doors in.
And then the base of the pan to the floor as well.
Yeah, down here, definitely. I think I'm thinking of doing some type of, not trim, but like a rounded edge down here.
I would caulk it first and then put the rounded edge on top of it.
Yeah, it's got clear caulk right now, the transparent. So
I spent many a year doing kitchens and bathrooms, and we would put gigantic, some people have so much money, they just put a gigantic slab of granite on the wall, 3 walls for their shower, and then they build a little granite staircase, and people have a lot of money.
So you know how to tile, and you made Frank fly all the way up here. You could have just came over here and showed me.
First of all, hold on. I didn't know Frank was coming up until after the tickets were purchased and he was on his way. Second of all, of course I would have helped you tile, but I missed Frank, which I still feel bad for. That's why I bought you guys lunch. Hopefully you guys went out and did something, because this new going to night shift and working 7P to 5A and new supervisory role, they're making my schedule bounce around because I have to attend these different, like, get you up to speed on how to do the job real quick because you're being thrown into it day one. And so my schedule's just been crazy. So I'm Frank. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I have another one if you want to come and help. It's in Lakewood. We're going to do it without a permit. So shh, don't tell anybody. Stupid freaking town. Thank you for the super chat, Frank. And then Dividend Dave, of course, with the dad joke. I say this just in case my kids are ever watching. My dog is having trouble speaking, so I took him to the vet. Turns out he has arthritis. That's classic Dividend Dave.
Yeah,
of course. I think we'll be wrapping this up here in a minute. There's a couple quick questions, and then we'll get over to your live stream. And then I'm actually going to go down and caulk and probably have a call from Frank to make sure I'm not missing any spots. So there's a couple questions about resetting the depreciation. One of them, so from Dan, it does recasting help with taxes in some way, like buying a new property does? It resets the amortization schedule on the interest. So you will have more interest to write off. I would never let the tax tail wag the dog. I wouldn't want to pay more interest to save in taxes because that's a negative return, right? You're paying $1,000 to be able to write off 300 if you're in the 30% tax bracket. So I wouldn't do that. I would benefit from it if I was doing the recast for other reasons. It doesn't start the depreciation over. Just like the other question, and I forget who had asked and I missed it. Afro-capitalist, if you refinance your 27-year depreciation start over, it does not. Because the depreciation is not based on the amount of debt that you have on the property. I paid cash for a property, depreciating it just like I would any other property. The depreciation schedule is based on the value of the buildings, on the upgrades to the property, not the debt. Some people will say, well, you just move it from your name into a LLC and that triggers like it was a sale, so it starts the depreciation schedule over. It does, yes, as long as you paid all of the depreciation recapture by taking it out of your name and putting it in the LLC, which is one of the three dumbest things people do with LLCs. So no, not a good use. The idea is depreciation starts when you buy it. The IRS assumes all depreciation was utilized, whether you took advantage of it or not. So you should always be using your depreciation as a write-off, even if it gives you a serious negative number to carry forward to the next year. It doesn't trigger an audit, and you're still bankable because lenders take depreciation out of the equation when they look at your bankability. With that, if you want more questions answered, I will be back on Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific to answer questions live. I'll probably be doing a live stream this weekend, but it'll be on my phone where I don't answer questions. Millennial Mike, if is your live stream like set, like almost ready to go here? I'd like to do
Yeah,
it.
should be. Hopefully it's not hopefully it's not going quite yet, but
And
yeah, I'm gonna
coming
upload a
squatter
thumbnail
versus
right now and
landlords.
what'd you say?
Is it the squatters versus landlords?
Squatters versus landlords. Wait, you can see it already?
I can't, well, I'm going to share it here in the chat so that people know where to go.
Okay. Yeah,
So don't
yeah.
go
Share it.
anywhere off of YouTube. We are heading over to Mike's channel, and I'm going to listen while I go and finish the work down there. There is a link to the video that we're going to now.
Perfect.
So we will see you all there until our next video. Thanks for coming to my